I'd like to update the House on the current flooding situation in England. I'd like to start by extending my heartfelt sympathies to all the people and businesses affected. Having your home or place of work flooded at any time is a horrendous experience, but it's particularly dreadful at a time of hope and celebration for individuals and communities, and I hope that those affected will be able to rebuild in the days ahead. This current flooding is the latest set of flood events to occur in what has already been a challenging autumn and winter storm season. A combination of heavy rain, snow and high winds have affected England since the 30th of December, with the worst rain arriving on the 1st of January. Many New Year's Eve celebrations were cancelled, and people in the northwest and central England woke up in the new year to find rivers at record levels, roads, car parks, businesses and unfortunately dozens of homes flooded. Last night has seen further heavy rain and flooding affecting transport infrastructure and other services. And the Environment Agency's current areas of most concern today focus on the Midlands, Warwickshire, Lincolnshire and Nottinghamshire, and in Leicestershire, the Fire and Rescue have declared a major incident. There remains extensive amounts of floodwater in rivers and other bodies of water, and a lot of the ground is saturated. The extent of flooding in fields and on our transport infrastructure and in the news and social media shows us the impact that water has on our communities. As Right Honourable Members will appreciate, this is an ongoing and dynamic situation, but I wanted to come here and provide the latest and most detailed updates possible on what is happening and how we are responding. So turning to the flooding on New Year's Eve, the heavy rainfall was forecast by the Met Office, who issued rainfall warnings across most of England, including an amber rain warning for large areas of the northwest. 164 flood warnings and 154 flood alerts were issued by the Environment Agency between New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. And rain fell across large parts of England, with the worst impacted areas in the northwest, including Cheshire, Greater Manchester, Lancashire and parts of Yorkshire, and the highest ever levels on the River Mersey were recorded. Environment team agents operated flood basins at Catterall, Garston, Croydon in Lancashire and Lilford, Sale and Didsbury in Greater Manchester. And Cheshire was a specific area of concern, declaring a major incident with over 100 families needing evacuation in the Warrington area. A large section of embankment at the Bridgewater Canal collapsed, with water draining onto farmland and inundating a wastewater treatment works owned by United Utilities. The owner of the canal is Peel Holdings, who took emergency action to stop the flow of water, and while the treatment work was inaccessible for a time, United Utilities have assured us that the plant is back up and running. A number of evacuations were needed, even where properties were not flooded, including the Britannia Hotel in Didsbury, and Manchester required an evacuation of 400 residents. While some of the heavy rain has passed by the 2nd of January, subsequent cold weather impacted much of the same areas, hampering recovery efforts and adding further misery for those whose homes have flooded. Environment Agency staff continued their work across the country and brought in mutual aid from unaffected areas to help efforts in the worst areas hit. They were also operating defences, supporting emergency response partners in managing live incidents and continuing to issue flood warnings to warn and advise communities at risk. Late yesterday evening, further heavy rainfall fell across parts of England, and this has led to a combination of river and surface water flooding. The EA are continuing to respond in affected areas, including in the Midlands, Leicestershire, Derbyshire, Birmingham, Nuneaton, Loughborough, and the River Trent, Avon and Idle. The Environment Agency are reporting at least 350 properties have flooded and over 21,000 properties protected since New Year's Eve. Over the next 24 to 36 hours, as water moves to the lower reaches and slower responding catchments, there will likely be some localised flooding across multiple smaller areas. Now, climate change will inevitably lead to more severe weather of the kind we've seen this weekend. But I want to reassure the House that flooding is a personal priority for me and one of our top 5 priorities in DEFRA. This government inherited flood defences in the worst condition on record following years of underinvestment. Due to the impacts of inflation and ageing asset base and no additional funding being made available by the previous government to repair storm damage, flood defence integrity is at its lowest since 2009-10, with approximately 60,000 properties less well protected than if flood defences were at an optimal condition. This is why we're investing £2.4 billion over the next 2 years to build and maintain flood defences. We've also set up a new flood resilience task force to make sure there is better coordination between central government and the frontline agencies in the ground and up and down the country, bringing together organisations including the Association of Drainage Authorities, the National Farmers Union, local resilience forums and emergency responders. It is key to strengthening resilience in the face of floods, and they met for the first time in September and will be meeting later this month. We've also provided £60 million to help farmers affected by the unprecedented flooding last winter, and an additional £50 million will be distributed to internal drainage boards to manage water levels to protect the environment and agriculture. To make the most of our flood forming, we'll be refreshing our approach to funding flood defences, including a review of the existing flood funding formula, to ensure the challenges facing businesses and rural and coastal communities are taken into account when delivering flood protection. We were going to consult on this new approach in the new year, and of course I'll inform all members when that consultation is live. And we aim to bring the approach in from April 2026. The Environment Agency community and field teams are out today to assess and report on the impacts from the last 24 hours, and I'm sure the whole House will join me in thanking the emergency services, local authorities and the Environment Agency and volunteers for their work in keeping communities, properties and businesses safe. Yeah. And I'd like to also recognise the work done by many local MPs and their constituents, including Joe Platt, the MP for Lee and Atherton. Residents in Lilford and Lee have been impacted twice by flooding in recent years. This is proof that resilient methods and investment need to be reassessed constantly, and we as a government are committed to supporting residents to do that. And I know as well, Madam Deputy Speaker, there are many more MPs who wanted to be here, but because of flooding, they're out supporting their constituents. So I'd like to give thanks to all of those and mention James Nash in Rushcliffe, who is out supporting constituents right now. I held a call on Friday for MPs to be updated, and I'm grateful the Shadow Minister was able to join that, and I'll continue to communicate with members as they raise issues. Flooding is such an important issue, and I will work tirelessly to make our communities more resilient to flooding, and I commend this statement to the House.